Okay, dead arm. Dead arm. Got a question about dead arm. What was the question specifically? Wow, I only wrote down dead arm. So we'll just say like the question was, hey, what do you do to deal with dead arm? So I want to preface by saying like I'm not going to speak towards a therapist opinion, right? Like I don't know the actual like injury side of this part. I'm just going to speak from personal experience as a pitcher who has faced multiple accounts of quote unquote dead arm. For those of you guys who do not know what dead arm is, it is literally a phase in which your arm is just dead. There's like nothing behind your throws. It's not pain, it's not soreness, it's not achy, it's not dull. It's literally just dead. And even though it feels quote unquote fine, it's just like there's your velocity's down, there's nothing behind the ball, your breaking balls are just spinners and they're not sharp, they're not late. It's a brutal period of time. So here's my thing. We'll keep it super simplistic because there's no really need to overcomplicate it. Like with anything in baseball, you got to defeat it first mentally, right? Like it's super easy to say this, obviously, and another thing to put it into action, but you can't panic, right? You can't panic to the point where now you're trying to reinvent the wheel from like a mechanical standpoint or even like a mental standpoint. And when I say reinvent the wheel, you're like trying to change up everything because you think like everything is off because you have dead arm. It's not necessarily the case. So don't panic. Stick to the process, man. Like I know that sounds cliche, but it really does hold true, right? Like control what you can control, meaning how's your work ethic? Are you doing the right things? Are you training hard? Are you the hardest worker in the room? Is your throwing program on point? Blah, blah, blah. Now, from the actual routine standpoint, I would actually encourage like play around with some changes, right? Play around with changing your throwing volume. Play around with changing your training volume. There's been times in my career where I've felt like I've defeated dead arm fairly early on in the process by changing either the way that I've trained or the way that I've thrown. There was one time during a season which I was starting and I was having this dead arm, which was actually kind of interesting because I had this like 2-week period of dead arm, but nothing changed from like my velocity or my stuff. It just felt for me personally that it wasn't coming out good. So I changed my routine to where I was then like long tossing every day. I was training hard every day, and it helped me. Now that's not to say that it's going to help you, and that's not to say that I encourage you to do that, but I just want to give you an example of how you can look at your routine and be like, all right, I'm going to change that. It's the same thing that I would say with like facing velocity plateaus, right? You want to change up a little bit of central nervous system stuff, right? But I think, again, like the biggest encouragement I have for people is like, do not panic, take a step back, burps, and really come to the conclusion that, okay, essentially it's beyond my control. Like it's going to happen, especially if you're logging a lot of innings. And then, like I said, take that step back and just realize that, okay, what is in my control? My work, my preparation, my mental game, my breathing, my thought process, my mentality. Like all of these things that you can control, like just do them. And yeah, trial and error, throw up some stuff like up against a wall, see if it sticks. Like who knows? Everyone's going to have a different process. I played with a guy actually who went about his dead arm phase. Like he was a starter, so 5-day routine, and he wouldn't pick up a ball until the day before his start. after starting. So he would not throw a baseball 4 days or 3 days, math, and then pick up a ball and throw and then be like, all right, I'm fine. Like some people, like it's crazy, man. And that's why it's so important to self-identify like what you need and kind of what works for you, right? But yeah, it sucks. But at the same time, like I think the biggest piece is the mentality, right? Like don't think you need to reinvent the wheel or do anything different mechanically or anything like that. So hopefully that helps. Someone can take something from that, but cool.